Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code LISTEN50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code LISTEN50.
Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code LISTEN50 for 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code LISTEN50.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey everyone, I just want to give you guys some updates. First, I want to mention that we'll be releasing episodes once a week through the summer on Tuesdays and re-releasing some old episodes for you to enjoy on Fridays. Part of the reason we're going to be doing that goes back to when my mom died in October of 2023. One of the last things that she said to me, other than that she was proud of me and saying I had done well, was, "Jason, go live your life." Part of living my life will be taking some vacations, including going to Montreal, Fargo, North Dakota, and a trip around Lake Superior. But I'm also going to be going on trips pursuing some of my interests related to the podcast, like a search we'll be doing in Montana for Ashley Loring Heavy Runner, the 20-year-old woman who went missing on the Blackfeet Reservation. I interviewed Ashley's sister, Kimberly, in February in the episode, A Sister's Search for Hope, Peace, and Ashley Loring Heavy Runner. One of the great things about this podcast is being able to be a connector. In the 2023 episode, you got to hear from Gloria Crow-Boberts, whose cousin, Christina Nelson, went missing in Lewiston, Idaho, in an unsolved death that was connected to the Lewis-Clark Valley serial killer. In that episode, Gloria, who like Kimberly has become a friend, mentioned she was training her dog Cash as a cadaver dog. Well, Cash is trained, and Gloria, Cash, and others will be joining us for a search for Ashley. Kimberly's called it One Last Search for Ashley, and I'm hoping that we find her. One of the things that I've heard from guests who have had loved ones who are missing is the deepest desire that they have is to bring their loved one home where they belong. Other listeners from our Patreon and Facebook group will be joining us on the search for Ashley. In evidence that it is indeed a small world, Gloria and Cash were also searching for Emily Risling just before our recent episodes on her with her cousin, Judge Victoria Shaw. I say all this to make the point that we have a community of people who care deeply and are aligned in our values to make the world a little better and to ease suffering. I couldn't be more proud of being associated with the people who listen to this podcast. You all are truly amazing. I'll also be working on some other things related to our true crime publication on Substack, the True Crime Times. We started it with Brett and Alice of the Prosecutors Podcast, and I hope you get a chance to check it out if you haven't already. There's some interesting commentaries there from people from all walks of life. I'll be working also on some other projects aligned with what matters to me. I'll also be at CrimeCon this September, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there in Denver. I hope some of you can make it, and I'm looking forward to reuniting with the listeners that we saw last year and the year before, and also with some of our previous guests. And I'm looking forward to meeting some people who inevitably will become future guests. Now, I'm going to drop after this a listener thank you and some thoughts I shared with members of our Patreon. If you want to join that community where we have some deep and powerful conversations, and perhaps more importantly, episodes without all these ads, you can join at www.patreon.com/the Silver Linings Handbook. With that, here you go. Hey everyone. I want to thank you for being a part of this community and contributing to our efforts to find the silver linings in some of the toughest moments in life. I was talking to someone recently about how suffering in life is inescapable and that the goal is not to do the impossible and eliminate suffering, but to help us suffer better. You've probably noticed that the podcast has been traveling all over the place in recent months. We've explored addiction and recovery, religious trauma, social media, a disappearance in Appalachia, how to live with the past, true crime ethics, the murder of Scott Macklem, the wrongful conviction of Pablo Velez Jr., domestic violence, a 50-year-old murder in North Carolina, and an assortment of other topics. When I was talking to AJ Delario recently about what the through line of this podcast is, he essentially asked me why there's so many true crime stories. And I told him that there are really no true crime stories. They're just human stories. Crime is merely a vehicle, a narrative that helps us understand ourselves and the lives of others better. When Ashley Loring Heavyrunner's sister, Kimberly Loring, talks about her relationship with God and having forgiven the people she knows killed her sister, that's a story about crime, but it's also about a beautiful, kind, and talented missing woman who should be brought home to her family. It is also a lesson for all of us, because who among us could not learn an important lesson from a woman who has forgiven the people who are responsible for the death and disappearance of her sister? When we struggle with holding grudges and we think of Kimberly, maybe it makes it a little easier to let go of resentment and anger. It makes it easier to see that healing and peace come from learning to love the people who have cut you most deeply. When you hear Brian Santana, Cameron Santana, Carolyn Lowe, and others talk about why they work so hard to solve and bring justice to people who are undoubtedly no longer with us, you learn how the ties that bind some of us transcend life on this earthly plane. When you hear Brett Talley, Alice LaCour, and Julia Cowley talk about what motivates them to do what they do on their podcasts, you're seeing humans dedicated to truth, justice, and solving mysteries, and you can see that it can be done in an ethical and compassionate and truthful way. When Bob Ailes talks about his childhood sexual abuse and the desire to help others, I took away a message about resilience and how healing can make a difference in protecting and helping other people. I want to take a moment to credit the community for all of those episodes. When I look at recent interviews, I've noticed how many of them came from suggestions from more than 2 years ago. So many of the others have come from recent suggestions and things that I've been exposed to. So when people talk to me about the healing they get from our conversations together, I give you all credit for exposing me to your ideas and sharing. It's a boomerang effect of love when their words come back and touch you. I talk about this in a recent article for the True Crime Times about how Brett and Alice introduced me to Ashley Loring Heavyrunner, which is one of my motivators to look into the plight of Indigenous people. And that led to a lot of healing for many of those guests and a lot of learning for many of you, as you've told me. You should check out that article to see some of the real world impact also of what we do together for people. So keep in mind, in some of our upcoming episodes, we will be exploring true crime. Some of it is pretty powerful. We're going to get a chance to hear from Gilbert King, the host of the podcast Bone Valley, from a woman who grew up in a crime family with fallen true crime star Billy Jensen and a man named Victoria Shaw, a tribal judge whose cousin, Emily Risling, went missing on a reservation in Northern California. Some people often say this podcast is true crime adjacent. I've been thinking about that a little bit differently lately. This podcast is about humans and the human experience. And truthfully, true crime is human adjacent, a compelling vehicle that helps us talk about the human experience. Yes, many of these stories involve true crime, but they're not true crime stories as much as they are human stories. And I want to take a minute to thank you all for being a part of that healing, to be a part of that helping, that helps us find joy, to find those silver linings, and suffer a little bit better. So thank you.